How to practice Tantra in a relationship. This has been a very hard question I've gotten throughout my time teaching because, because of the amount of confusion, right? We have like the spiritual aspect of Tantra, and if you're new here, Tantra is weaving together my consciousness with everything else that exists. Then we have like sex magic, and then we have sexual tantra, and then we have all these different branches of traditional tantra, and then we have the left hand paths of the West, and it just can get really messy. So in the Venusian Academy, we value practicality, and this is a space for the modern woman, meaning that you might not go and spend a year or 2 years in India learning this stuff. And maybe you also don't want to take a guru, but you want to explore and use these ancient technologies to be able to help you get to know yourself better outside of the traditions. Because, if you're not going to do the tradition right, then just don't do it at all, right? Either outside or inside, but saying that you're in one area and then not following it, it can get really messy. So in order to understand the context of the class for today and what I'm going to be talking about regarding Tantra in a relationship with a partner, engaging in sexual energy, it's important to understand where we're coming from. Even though a lot of the principles I use are from Chakta Tantra, I do not practice Chakta Tantra exclusively because I don't have a guru. And in India, if you don't have a guru, you cannot practice Tantra because you have not been given a mantra. Now, on the left-hand path, it's almost like the wild, wild west of these spiritual practices. It falls under the umbrella of Telema, and then also modern Tantra and Western occultism. So I am a Western occultist, and I have some pillars of Telema, but I really resonate with the Chakta Tantra explanation of the cosmos and the understanding of the 10 cosmic powers, which are the 10 phases of Shakti. And Shakti is something that really like the name Shakti is something that really awakens something in me. So I've studied the 10 Mahaviryas, and I've in my exploration of each one of these energies within myself, in life, the world, and in the philosophies I've read, I organize my own spiritual system and structure. So this conversation, it falls under this very specific umbrella. Okay, so if you're looking for, tantric practices that are traditional, then it's good to find a traditional teacher that has a guru that has been giving these mantras. Otherwise, welcome to the Wild Wild West, and let's begin. If you're new here, my name is Silvana. I am the founder of the Venusian Academy, a space for Tantra and the feminine arts. In order to start this conversation about how to practice Tantra with a partner, we're going to begin by talking a little bit about what happens before you begin sharing sexual energy with another person. Whenever you are alone and you're practicing, your practice is basically solo with yourself. I have a video that talks about practicing Tantra alone. I recommend you watch it even if you are in a relationship, just so you get an idea of like the internal journey. A lot of my content regarding Pink Tantra, the Tantric Taste series, this is all solo stuff. So this is a good place to begin before you step into sexual Tantra territory. I also have another video that I'll put in the description box below that's called the 3 types of Tantra. And basically we have white, red, black, and then we also have gray and pink Tantra. And pink Tantra mixes the white and red. White is the spiritual Tantra, where I'm not really engaging with like the carnal aspect of sexuality, and then red Tantra does use sexuality as a means of creating this inner weaving together. And pink Tantra, it's a combination of the two. I will say pink Tantra is a Western creation because it kind of tap into both of them. So the Tantric Taste series talks about Pink Tantra, so I recommend you watch that to get the context of this conversation. All right. So once you understand this inner weaving that happens within yourself and the union that is going on individually outside of the bedroom, outside of sexuality, then we understand that sexuality is an area that is going to give us a lot of self-mastery. We're going to get to know parts of ourselves that we might not even be able to tap alone, because it's having a mirror from the animal to the spiritual part of ourselves right there, showing us certain things. Inside of our relationship, there's many gifts that you can collect outside of getting to know yourself. And one of the most important one for women that I think, I've heard in my mentorships and in my courses, and I've experienced myself, is the opportunity to communicate from my body to my partner what it wants and what it needs. This is a very healing thing, because we think that we know what we want. We think that we understand our own sexuality because we have been having sex for X amount of years. But whenever we bring our conscious awareness into our body and into the sexual act, it's very common to realize, like, oh my God, I thought I knew, but I didn't. I thought I knew my body, but my body, it's almost like numbed out, and it's just sending physical, electrical impulses of pleasure. But I'm not tapping into the depth of the sexual expression because I have not connected with that in myself. That's the importance of really understanding the solo aspect of this before we step into the shared aspect of tantric sex. So whenever I allow my body to communicate to my partner, I become the voice of the body. I offer my throat to my body and I say, body, you communicate whatever you need and want. In order for us to be able to do that comfortably and become that vulnerable of communicating really the needs, which are, it's like a lot of times it's almost many no's. And to have a partner that has the patience, the understanding, the emotional and spiritual maturity to be able to understand that none of the things that are happening are personal, but it's more of a reconnection with the body. That's a great gift. So in sexuality, we get a space, especially when you're with somebody. It's not, it's not a trauma bond, but it's actually a relationship that comes from two whole individuals coming together and becoming a mirror for one another. In that space, that's where we get to allow our body to communicate what it wants, what it doesn't want. And we need to be able to have a very good relationship with our own vulnerability in order to be an effective communicator of the body to our partner. This is also an opportunity to reawaken your body and to allow the pure consciousness to ignite and move and aliven a part. Very beautiful practice. This is weird but simple, and it's very interesting. The hands, to awaken the hand chakras and to almost like send sexual energy into the hand with the other, playing with the hands. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you are with your partner and usually, like you're talking and then you kiss and then you end up having intimacy. What if one day you choose to explore intimacy, but only with the hands? What would that look like? To be able to trigger sexual energy that is just moving with the hands, that is like an awakening of the hand chakras. Pay attention to this, if you're a healer, if you work with your hands, if you do Reiki, massage, or if you're a healer of any kind, especially hands-on healer, oh my God, this you're gonna feel this, and you're gonna see it also in your practice and in your healing modalities, because you're going to open up the space. You are putting sexual energy into this energetic center that is maybe is not sexual. And I'm not saying the hand with a sexual part, but like hand on hand, yet driven by the core, the power, the direction of sexual energy to be able to awaken it. When we do that with a non-sexual part of our body, we learn how to reawaken different parts. And the more that we do that with more parts, it's like the more alive we become. And the more alive we become, the more space and expansion for Shakti to flow through, for the 10 cosmic powers, the 10 tantric goddesses to come through and begin teaching you and showing you, and you get to explore who you really are, and parts of yourself that you didn't know existed beginning coming to the surface, because now there's the space for that. So this is one of the gifts that, you get to explore with in a relationship with somebody, because it's like you're moving sexual energy from another person, but it starts like, it starts from like the non-sexual parts, and then you can step into the sexual parts, and that brings on an awakening energy. And this goes both ways, because remember, we both have masculine and feminine energies. So it's not that only the masculine partner, regardless of the gender, is sending off that sexual energy into the feminine partner, is that we both can tap into, I can tap into my masculine energy and ignite, awaken, shoot out sexual energy into a specific part of my partner's body. So this is the space for that. This is one of the things that we can do it alone, but it's another experience whenever we get to share that with a partner. Now, in the actual act, right? Like if you don't have any traditional tantric training, or maybe you've read about it, but it's like, okay, what's the application of this? One of the things that I also mentioned in previous videos is to offer your pleasure to the divine. Basically, as you're experiencing pressure, you're going to bring into your awareness one of the 10 cosmic powers of the cosmos, one of the 10 faces of Shakti. And I'm saying one because, yeah, they're all gonna be moving, right? It's 10 faces of the same energy, but that directive energy, of like, it's one, and in this one, I give her this pleasure. Maybe another one wants to step in, and then I offer my pleasure to this one. I'm weaving together this big moment of pleasure, of love and connection with one of the 10 tantric archetypes. So in this weaving, it's like magic is happening. And offering the pleasure to the divine is healing that wound that exists in humanity that separates pleasure from divinity and spirituality. So this is a very powerful practice for that reason, because it's also a collective practice. And the more that you do that, and the more that you embody this union between the pleasurable, carnal, and the spiritual and divine, it's almost like that's what you vibrate in, and you awaken the world around you when you're walking in this energy. So it is a collective healing that we do in this process. Another practice that you can bring into sexuality to, bring in tantric principles into your relationship and your intimate relationships is to practice a mantra, especially if you already have a mantra that you practice daily. And again, in traditional Hindu Tantra, they will tell you like you cannot practice a mantra unless you have been initiated by a guru and the mantra has been given to you by a guru, because this is not a conversation about traditional Hindu Tantra. We're going to leave that to the masters and the teachers over there. But this is a westernized, occult exploration of Tantra. Then you can initiate yourself. And I have a series called the Tantric Taste, and over there in the series I teach you how to initiate yourself into a Lalita Tripura Sundari mantra that you can do. You take responsibility for your spiritual life and for your well-being, and if you are a person that you have ownership of yourself, then go ahead and do that. And that's what I did. And you initiate yourself into a mantra, and then you practice it daily. And if you already have this mantra, you can bring in this mantra into the sexual act. And when you are in the act, I'm being careful because we're on YouTube, but when you are in the act, you're mentally chanting this mantra. And this is you're not only weaving together the divine and the carnal aspects, you are bringing in this very powerful divine energy. Mantras, they're ancient technologies. They have been infused by sages and masters, and like now you find them online, but like back in the day, this was a very occult, secretive thing. And I think like the reason why for me is like, let's explore the Wild West of this, is because times have changed. All this occult information that was occult in the past is now available. So let's begin exploring with it and almost like learning to navigate it and see what happens. I am an experiential tantric, and that's why I love this work, because I saw the results and the shifts. And also, as a warning, this is a path of like immediate consequences. If your energy is misaligned, if there is some shadow there that's working behind the scenes, that's doing things, it's like immediate karma, which for me is a blessing because it corrects me very fast. It's like, oh, there is the consequences of my actions, so I'm now going to realign myself. So bringing in these mantras is bringing sound, energy, and also all of the times you have chanted the mantra, you have been like infusing it, right? You like fed the cosmic energy, or the cosmic energy has fed you, like whatever, chicken, egg, it doesn't matter, but you are in relationship with the cosmic energy of this sound. And if that's what you're bringing into the sexual act of a tantra that you have already, a mantra that you already have a relationship with, you're magnifying this energy, you are expanding, you're exploring deeper. So this is something that you will start seeing results both in your life and the life in your partner right after you do that. Both of you might expand and grow, or the relationship might end. See, so that's why I'm saying, like, you take responsibility for what you're doing. And this is your journey. Like, you're an adult and you choose how to live it. And if you have the maturity to be able to and have mastered your inner fears, then play with this. And I say play very consciously. Play with this energy. Very energy that maybe somebody would tell you, you don't play with that. I'm telling you, play with it. Tap it, connect with your innocence and play with it. Something that was given to you. So see what happens when you do that. Because you might be stepping into the most profound, expansive growth spurt that you've experienced so far. That's the power of uniting this, these ancient technologies of mantra with sexuality. So if you already have a mantra, bring it into the bedroom. And then lastly, you can do tantric rituals. I'm not going to give you any tantric ritual here. This is something I only discuss in my private one-on-one mentorships, but there are oceans of information out there about different tantric rituals that you can do, where you are combining different elements and you're bringing in, specific practices on specific days of the moon, on there is a science to it, but then that now we're stepping into more sacred territory. But it's available, and trust that you will find the ones that are for you, and trust that your own intuition will guide you. And if your own intuition tells you maybe don't do that yet, then don't do that yet, right? So personal responsibility as you're exploring and playing with this energy, by learning how to use it. But if you can, if you want to start somewhere, start with the mantra and then let what happens after that show you the next step. If you're interested on mentoring with me privately one-on-one, I will leave in the description box below some information about my tantric mentorship, and then we can get a free call, answer all your questions. Otherwise, you can also join the Venusian Academy for free, where I have some classes online, workshops. The Tantric Taste series is there with the workbook and all the things. So I hope to see you there. And thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.